go. OverDrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker. Up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. How we feeling? How's everyone doing?
A couple things. I noticed Santa got you some cabinetry. I noticed that. Santa was good to you. He got you some nice white IKEA furniture back there that you put together, and I love it.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, you texted me something today that really bothered me, and we're going to get into it later on in the show, but it's just, I'm going to throw something at you right now. If you think that you're going to take ownership of my man Ludwig Aberg when it comes to golfing picks, don't even go there.
That's my guy.
Dude,
you know
I told you about him. I told you about him.
Even remotely true. A year and a half ago, I said number one guy in college. He's coming. The Swedish Tiger. That's my guy. If I have the first pick, I'm taking him every week. If I have the first pick, I'm taking him every week.
You know what I think we should do? Switch it up from January until July 1st. We should have some type of trivia lottery system where you get ownership of a player for the year. And it's like anytime he's in the field, he's yours. It's like, I don't know, because I don't want you taking my guy Ludwig, and I want a piece of that action. This guy might win every major this year.
He is unreal, man. I am jacked. For Kapalua, you got Rolf talking up Hawaii. Rolf is happier than anyone on earth.
Every time he sees a little creek or something, he's like, that's the Hanakawanalea Creek. And when you jump in there, you get horny. You get horny when you jump in that creek. He loves Hawaii,
man, Rolf. He loves Kapalua.
I love the idea of, but what happens if you lose the coin toss and Hayes gets him?
I'll be devastated, but I don't know. He's going to be, the guy's got like a Tiger presence, man, where everyone's going to take him the first pick every week. He's almost won every event he's played in.
Yeah, he's a beast, man.
Even if he starts poorly, he's like Tiger. He ends up top 5 every time he tees it. He's sick.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll figure that out later this afternoon. We're going to be back into the swing of things. You're right. The PGA Tour is back out in Kapalua. We're jacked about that. Rory McIlroy doing a podcast and talking about LIV, and all of a sudden he's got a different approach. We'll touch on that later this afternoon. Ross Atkins speaking with the media and making everyone feel a lot better about where the Blue Jays are at.
Dude,
so
that's some weird comments. Again, some weird comments. It's, I don't know, man. I don't know. Yeah. You got to get him on because I'd like to ask him some real tough stuff. Like
we're trying to. Yeah, like we got Kiermaier coming up in an hour, and we'll ask Kevin because one thing he did say, we got audio, we'll play it, of Ross earlier today, talking about internal improvement and how the staff is going to do something different to help the players. And we're going to ask Kevin in an hour, like, what were they not doing last year that you expect to be done differently?
Well, what's the difference between internal improvement and just not cutting it and not good enough? Am I missing something, or is it just
exactly? I mean, to be fair to Ross, no GM is going to come out and say we swung and missed. We're in big trouble, and I don't know what else to tell you. See you later.
I get that, but what about just what drives fans nuts? And I think it drives – I talked to some members of the media, and they're like, maybe just some, like, honesty. Like, just a little bit of honesty where instead of sugarcoating it and saying some – like, terms like internal improvement drive people nuts, man. Because they're like, that's putting lipstick on a turd and saying, well – because in actuality, it was nonsense. It was garbage, the hitting, the offense. And you say internal improvement. It's just, I don't know. If I'm a fan, like a diehard, I go nuts when I hear that comment.
Well, why don't we play it here quickly? Because we're on it. Everyone, if
we're
you
yelling
missed
and
it,
screaming about it.
Yeah, I mean, this is Ross Atkins on, not getting Ohtani. They haven't done really much in the offseason. They're going to sign another bat, maybe 2, but it's not going to be someone of significance, or it doesn't feel likely. And here's what he had to say about, how they go from last year to this year and feel like they're an improved team.
The things I think we're missing aren't people. I think the things that we're missing were our ability to support and help the players, which we feel like we've worked to offset and put ourselves in a much better position. It's really just putting our staff in a position to best support the players that are here to get us back to that run scoring.
Nonsense comment, Brian. That's a nonsense comment, because if anybody that doesn't know, if they're around professional sports in 2023 or 24 now, These guys have every single luxury thing available to them to help them perform and be the best that they can be. Everything. Like you wouldn't believe. They have daycares in the buildings. They have gyms. They have personal everything, haircuts. Yeah. It's like there's nothing you can to say that you haven't supported the players. I really think is a nonsensical comment.
He's falling on a sword. I think he's falling on a sword. But you know what? When I heard that comment, do you remember when Mark Bergevin came out and said, like, I'm not going to really change the team. We just need an attitude adjustment. I don't know if you remember that. And people in Montreal went crazy because they're like, no, you need to change the roster. You need to. And he said, like, it was an internal, like, we need an attitude adjustment, but we're going to roll the same group back type of thing.
Okay, so Hayes, let me ask you this. If they all just had a powwow and said, we're going to have an attitude adjustment, do you think that they're good enough to be way better than they were and be some kind of juggernaut that's scaring the hell out of everyone?
No. And, Noodles, that's a great example, the Bergevin example. I'll give you a more local one and a more recent one. Okay. Masai Ujiri just said last offseason, we got to change our culture.
Yeah.
We got to change
the way we play.
Exactly. And guess what they are? They're 13-20.
There
right?
You go.
Because they're not good enough. And that's the reality is that what has become clear from my standpoint is ownership was willing to spend on Ohtani because Ohtani represented something very unique. He was a marketing bonanza, right? And obviously he was going to help the team. Needless to say, he's a great player that would drastically improve any team he went to. But ownership was willing to spend $600 million, $700 million, so that they could get their business involved, so they could sell tickets. Maybe they could get into Japan. Like, that's why. And when Ohtani, they swung and missed, it was like, well, we're not spending anything else. You know, like you can have some money naturally. And this is a payroll that generally is top 10. But basically, Atkins understands and Shapiro understands they have not done anything close to enough to improve this team. And they're going to try to sell the new renovations, which is not going to fly the second time around. And all you can do is try to pretend like internal improvements is going to go somewhere. And it very well could in some areas, right? Do I think Alejandro Kirk will be better? Yes. Do I think Vladdy will probably be better? Yes. But do you know what I think will be worse? The rotation. The rotation was incredible last year. So, yes, internal improvements with the bats, but what if the rotation comes back to earth? What if the bullpen comes back to earth? How do you balance the two? So you cannot sell a fan base who was deflated when Ohtani went to the Dodgers, when Soto went to the Yankees, on, hey, can you come buy some tickets because our projections are suggesting we're going to be better. It's absurd. Yeah. It's not. There's no way Atkins really believes it. I don't think Shapiro believes it. And at this point, if you're even the most eternally optimistic Blue Jay fan, you're probably bracing for a team that doesn't touch 89 wins. Maybe it happens. Maybe there's more to come in the offseason. We'll see. There'll be some excitement like there always is. But it's a very deflating offseason. And Atkins effectively concluded that today. You know, basically, we know everyone was jacked for Ohtani. We were connected to Soto, and we were connected to Yamamoto, and all these different players. We didn't get any of them. So now John Schneider's got a different spreadsheet that he's going to use around the batting cage. You know, so that's really going to help us.
And guys, it just comes back to the one thing that I mentioned earlier. Why not some honest remarks? Like, we talk about the fan base in this market all the time. It's like, no matter how much money they pay for tickets, they want to hear like some kind of real blue collar type answer where it's like, that's not good enough. We got to make some changes around here, and I think the fans could expect that coming into next season. I don't even care if you don't intend on doing it. You got to feed them something different than, we're not looking for people. It's just results that have to come internally.
Right.
You weren't good enough.
Right.
You weren't good enough,
It's letting the players off the hook, too. It was the staff now, right? Meanwhile, the hitting coach is returning, managers returning, bench coaches returning. Yet Atkins is suggesting that they didn't do their job last year. So it's all very confusing. It's a segue to the Maple Leafs in the game they played last night, where there's no question this team, they need some improvements in certain areas, and they've been well documented. They're on their third and fourth string goaltender. But I think there are certain areas of this team that it actually is internal improvements in terms of the way they play in certain areas of the ice that should be expected. They could lead to better results. And I thought we saw it last night. I thought that was their most impressive road win of the year. I love their aggression. I love their checking. And that's what we keep talking about is their best players. Of course, you're going to need to score goals. Willie got 2 more cookies last night. He's up to 50 points. Incredible season for him. Matthews is expected to score 60 and 100 points, and Marner touch up on 100 points, and Tavares score 30 and get his 80 points or whatever. That's why you get paid. That's why you're the core four. That's why you are what you are in the National Hockey League. But it doesn't have to be 6-5 every night. There are other ways that you can play your game, and I'm talking the best players that will have a trickle effect on everyone else. And I loved what the best players brought to the table last night, because I thought they actually grinded, blocked shots, hit, were aggressive, stood up for each other.
If they don't do it tonight, what's the point of it?
Well,
honestly, if they just want to say, we got to get the coach off our back, let's have an effort because we've been garbage defensively and our goaltenders stunk to join out. And I'll tell you one thing about goaltenders, like that Trevor Moore save that Martin Jones made.
Great
if
stop.
that ends up at the back of the net, it's just like, here we go again.
Looks different.
And Noodles, we always talk about like saving yourself some video. You just need a guy to make that save once in a while where it's like, not everything is horrible. You're going to have breakdowns where you bend a little bit and there get some opportunities when you got a good team like that. He made the save and you can recover after. They were not getting that save from Samsonov, like not even close. That found its way in every time. But Hayes, the approach, if they don't have enough there should be enough maturity after this much time with these guys to understand. Like, you talk about a closed-door meeting. How about Johnny T standing up last night and saying, guys, the joke's over. That's what we do every night. That is what we do, and that's how we're going to win. And if you don't want to do it, just get the hell out of here. Or tell us before the game. Some kind of speech like that. Like, do that every night, you got something. But it can't be a one-off.
No, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I thought that game turned in favor of the Maple Leafs with the hit on Matthews. Because I thought that group banded together. That could have wilted the other way. We could have seen a response in a way where it's like, okay,
don't
LA
say that, Noodles.
physical.
The analytics people will say that had nothing to do with the outcome of the game.
Watching that game, I thought that changed in a positive way for the Leafs. I thought they dug in. They were good all night long. Jones made the save. Willie, you mentioned. We went through how the formula. But they dug in because LA said, you know what, we're going to try and bully you around. We're going to go after your top players. We're going to try and push you out of the game. They didn't. And that's I thought that maybe I'm wrong.
Personally, I thought they were the much better team in the first period. I thought the Leafs, it was 0-0, but the Leafs were rocking. Matthews could have had 2 or 3.
Good chances. Yeah, you're right.
They weren't being outplayed prior to that. But what I will say, I do think that's a good point, Noodles, that it was a fork in the road. And that's kind of circling back on the point I was making about how it doesn't have to be 6-5. It doesn't have to be all about how many points are you going to get. Because I look at Mitch Marner's game last night, and Marner didn't have any cookies. And if you watched it, you may have thought, he made a couple of decent plays. I actually went back and watched this afternoon. I loved his game last night because what he did was very predictable. He was hard on pucks. After Dubois laid out Matthews, he was the first one in. Now, he wasn't going frothing at the mouth. He didn't drop his gloves, but he grabbed them. And I think Mitch of the past, we'll see if it happens again tonight, Mitch of the past looks at the ref and goes, is that 5? Give me 5 for that. Let me go on the power play and get cookies. And he made a contact play late in the game last night to push a defenseman off the puck. And he won the battle. He kept the cycle alive. And, that's what people are talking about. You talk about internal improvement. Mitch Marner is a phenomenal player and a phenomenal talent. He's one of the 15 best players in the world. If he adds an element of, I'm going to get pissed off every once in a while, I'm going to play aggressively, I'm going to play smart, I'm better than you, and I'm going to show you because I don't care if we win 1-0 or 10-9, then we're talking here. And that's what I saw to him last night.
That's the difference they always said about Jonathan Toews. He would rather get 80 points and play that way every night and take his chances of helping a team win as opposed to saying, I got to get my 110, I got to get my 115. A lot of people say it about McDavid. What does he want to do? Does he want to get 158 points or does he want to try to get 90 or 100 and try to win every night? There's a big difference, man. And McDavid is a different. I shouldn't.
He's a freak of nature.
He's a freak where he got 5 points last night and had highlights every single point for fun because he's just way better than everybody else. That was disgusting what he did in Edmonton last night to those poor guys in Philadelphia. But if that's it's just a change of approach where it's like sometimes I might have to make a great play on the power play. But sometimes I got to hit a guy in the corner to steal a puck. And then sometimes I got to block a shot. not every game is so different. And if you're talented, a lot of nights your offensive ability is going to be what gets it done for your team.
Yeah.
But sometimes you got to have the approach that it might be something different. And I think there's a big time difference.
And they're so good, and they're going to play so many minutes, and they're going to be on the power play. The points are going to come. The
Mitch Marner is so talented that majority of the nights he is going to produce just because he's better than everybody else.
Exactly.
But you got to have the approach that tonight it might be get that puck out, get it in. Get a hit. Do something different. He's a great penalty killer. He blocks shots. Remember that playoff game against Boston where the last couple seconds he blocked that shot? And it was like, that was a big contribution, man. That wasn't some stupid little skate kick pass or a toe drag or some nonsense like that. If that happens when you're winning 5-1, but your whole mindset and approach, if it's different, I'll tell you what, it will look a lot different, and I think the results will be different.
Absolutely.
Yes, it was details. Like we can paraphrase, we can have all this stuff. The details were really good, really sharp, and they played 60 minutes. Mm-hmm. And, that's where you got to save. You got big boys making plays. You had the details. It wasn't about points. It was about getting it done against a very good team on the road. Like that was, for me, I thought that was a must win because that sets the tone. Yes, you've got 2 winnable games coming up. We'll see how they respond. That's kind of where,
this
everybody
is where they need to really keep proving themselves.
Exactly.
Right?
You got to double down. Now you go hard at it. And it doesn't, I think they will do it, but they got to go out and prove it again tonight against a team that they should beat, put it that way.
Well, and this has been their kryptonite is bad teams where, yes, it's a back-to-back, but there's no travel. You're healthy. That's another thing that needs to be brought up here is, yes, you're on your 3rd and 4th string goaltender, and Jones has been great for them. Like, he has been huge for them. But outside of Klingberg and Reeves, this is your lineup. Like, this is who you expected to play. This is the best lineup they can put forward until they start making deals. So they are healthy. And they should be in a position as a mature veteran team to look at a trip like this through California where you knocked off the first pin, and it's the toughest one, the Kings, where you say, to your point, Tavares or whoever, we're going to steamroll Anaheim tonight. Like, we are going to go in there and I think Boston was in Columbus last night, I believe. This is why I always bring up Boston. It's not that they have more talent than the Leafs. They have a better goaltending tandem.
Their approach on a nightly basis is way better.
Exactly. It's a game like Columbus or Anaheim where you don't have to watch. You're like, they're going to win 4-1. And what they're going to do is they're never going to cheat. That other team's going to cheat because they're worse and they're younger and they don't have great details. They're vulnerable. And just lean on them and lean on them. And if the Leafs play the exact same way they did last night, they'll win tonight 5-1. They will, unless goaltending causes them problems. We'll see. I mean, Dennis
is the Hildebeest in?
I think he is. It's not official yet. I have not seen an official announcement.
Noodles, you got a scouting report for the listeners on the Hildebeest?
Well, I mean, I know the Marlies coach as well, and they speak highly of him. He's a highly skilled guy. I've spoken to Curtis McElhinney about him as well. Like, he's got skill. He's not an NHL goaltender. They're just that you've got to give him an opportunity to grow. He's been really good with the Marlies. Well, he is going to be, but and don't get me wrong, this is a great opportunity for him. But this is short term. The plan is in place to try and reset Samsonov. You're looking at the schedule. You're looking at the team, and I know, Brian, you said this 2 weeks ago when they were talking about Buffalo playing Samsonov, going, okay, yeah, we're going to call a guy up and play him. But that's where the team has got to respond and go, this is this kid's first NHL game. Don't embarrass him. Give him an opportunity. Give him the goal support. Give him the details of the game where you can win 5-1 and he feels good about it instead of they hang 4 on him and you're chasing the game and you got to have this comeback. The team can help this kid out tonight.
Big time.
With an effort.
I wanted to ask you about Samsonov. We should have done it maybe later in the show for a percentage type segment, but how do you handicap the chances of this guy returning on form?
I mean,
just be real. How do you handicap?
It's under 50%, but where I was with him 3 or 4 days ago was 0, because you can't. The definition of insanity is keep putting him out there and hoping that something's going to change.
So he's doing right now? Is it 1,000% between his ears, where he's just completely lost confidence in what he's able to do?
Guys, there are some saves or non-saves. These glove shots, I don't know. I can't. That's not a technical thing. These the shots
he's got the yips.
Yeah, it's almost like he's delayed going, oh, my glove should have been there. But he does this weird, like, spread out with his legs, kind of reach after it, going, like, it's not, it's so far gone, like, from a technical thing, you're like, what the hell was that? And it's not just a one-off. That Jordan Greenway, the kid from Buffalo, remember I talked about that goal? That was just a dreadful goal to start the game. But he allowed one the other night where Samsonov, and it was against another Columbus. Against Columbus, exact same goal. I'm like, it's a weird way, and that's where you can tell, like, it's in his head where he's thinking, like, what do I need to do here? What do I need to do? And as you guys know, the minute you start thinking on the ice, you're in trouble. You need to react. So they are taking a reset. I like the approach because it's the only approach right now. If there's no trade out there or nothing that can help this group immediately for Brad Treliving, you try something different. So I do respect the approach, and I hope that he gets the help and everything. They've got nothing. Hayes, you say this a million times. They got nothing but resources. They got the biggest front office staff in the league, in North America, it feels like. So use it.
It feels like they should have started this 2 weeks ago. I mean, I think if they had a do-over, they'd go back to that Columbus, the first one, and say that's enough. Because it's been all year. It was very obvious, almost from the hop. They waited too long. But it's, it is what it is now. I'm personally more cynical. I have a tough time seeing him getting his career back on track. I'm pulling for him. I hope it happens.
Everybody is, man, but it just seems like, Washington saw something that they didn't like and that scared the hell out of them, and they released them a first-round draft pick. It's not like those are a bunch of bozos down there, and they totally misread the scenario. And when it happens again, you're like, what do you got inside, man? Like, what do you got total? Upstairs, inside? Like, can you put this back together? It'll be dicey, man.
It's a tough spot for him. And again, like the Leafs, it's, what is it, January 4th, January 3rd, and we're 3 days in. I already lost track. January 3rd, and we're on the third and fourth string goaltenders here. Like, you're a tweaked Martin Jones groin away from Keith Petruzzelli and Dennis Hildeby.
No,
being
it's the Hildebeest.
The Hildebeest. I mean,
Hildebeest.
It's a really precarious position to be in. Yeah, it's this. You talk about a feather in your cap. If you can get through the next month, the Leafs can get through the next month with their head above water and keep pumping in points and stay in the playoffs. That'll be a real testament, to what they're made of. This is a gut check because, again, up front they're healthy, on the back end they're healthy. I like that Benoit, man. He's playing really well.
I'm telling you what.
He's playing really well.
In preseason, everyone was like, this guy can't skate well enough. He takes too many penalties. And I don't know what the hell he ultimately is going to be. But you can tell the guy's been putting some work in because from training camp to now, there's a difference in what he's doing out there. I don't know if he's grown internally, Hazy B.
Possibly.
But there's a
maybe Guy Boucher's got access to something that John Schneider didn't, or Don Mattingly.
Dude, I'll tell you what. The guy scraps. He moves the puck. He skates relatively well. I don't have a problem with what he does out there. I'm a fan of his.
You know what? You talk about treading water. He's a guy that's been given an opportunity and has seized it. Good for him. I still believe that he will get pushed out of the lineup because Tree should be grabbing at least one, maybe two defensemen.
I think you're right.
That being said, it adds to your depth. You got a guy that can play. And that's where
I like his feet, Noodles, as opposed to some other guys. So I think that when it comes decision time as far as numbers, he could possibly tell other guys, it's a numbers game for you now.
All right,
that's
Craig
just what I think
up.
about him.
Craigie will join us from the World Juniors. We'll catch up with Craig. We've got Kevin Kiermaier, Dave Poulin, hockey executive Dave Poulin on the show in an hour. Jerry's percentage is still to come later this afternoon as well. The O-Dog and Noodles are back. I'm Bryan Hayes. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. OverDrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. We've got Dave Poulin in about an hour, our buddy Pooley. I guess it's back to Dave. Right? Is it Pooley still? He's a professional now. He's back in the game.
I don't know. We got to figure out the protocol. Like, that was all of a sudden, Pooley's in Ottawa on the management side. I had a good chat with him yesterday in Vancouver, and, he's the same Pooley. He's just on the other side now. So it's weird. We're going to have to figure out our relationship professionally again because, he's going to
I would guess
to,
it's former players Pooley. Anyone else? Dave.
Yeah. Hi, David. David, how are things? Yeah,
Mr. Poulin.
He was on the road. It wasn't a great introduction to the road for him last night. What the hell was that? Vancouver was up 5-0 after the first.
They tried calling the game. When it's that ugly that early, you go into podcast mode because you're not breaking down every play. Because I felt bad.
Nobody cares.
Well, at that point, people are just like, man, you can't break down another, turnover, another this and that. But then, their second, I wanted to see if they would actually push back, or this would be a 9-1 game type of thing. So they pushed back in the second, pushed back in the third. I don't know if you saw the 6th goal against. I'm sure you guys were asleep, but it was.
Oh my God, the bouncer.
It was the Vesip Toskala. How it changed directions was the Toskala bounce, but it was from closer in.
Well, Noodles, they got to figure out. It did. They got to figure. That was Toskala in that was, or not Toskala.
Toskala was the original one.
Toskala was the original one, but that was against the Islanders.
That was against Korpisalo last night. He was in the net, and I don't know what.
Yeah.
We can ask Pooley. We don't want to get into too much of the details, but what's their deal in Ottawa? Do they not want to play defense, or do they have a goalie problem, where it's whoever they throw a net gives up a 5-pack? They got to figure it out.
Probably a combination of both. Noodles,
we'll get into that.
Close and personal. We'll talk to. And Pooley's just got there. It's not like it's Pooley's fault. He's got to figure it out, right? He's back in the front office. I'm assuming him and Steve Stais, there's going to be a long chats, talking about what they're supposed to do moving forward. So Dave Poulin coming up in an hour. Kevin Kiermaier back with the Jays. He'll join us in about a half an hour. It's an off day, I guess, over at the World Juniors. I'm all discombobulated with Canada being out. It's in Sweden, the time zones. But our main man, Craig Button's been over there since the start and obviously been calling games and covering the tournament. He's the TSN Director of Scouting, and he joins us here on OverDrive. How you doing, Craig?
I'm good, but I'm disappointed in your little soliloquy there.
Uh-oh.
So because the tournament's over in Europe, you're not going to pay attention? Really? The World Juniors are our biggest property at TSN. And now you're sitting there saying you're not paying attention?
No.
You don't have to. You only have to get up at 8:30.
Yeah.
O-Dog's up. O-Dog's doing the work. Hey, Hayes, you got to be doing your work here.
I guess you're right, Craig. The Leafs are on the West Coast, though. That's the problem. The Leafs. I was up until 2 a.m. last night watching the Leaf game. So it throws me off.
I want to ask Craigie. I want to ask Craig. Craig, I said yesterday I will not do the World Juniors if that ref that tried to make that 5-minute major is back at the tournament. Can you please tell me that someone had a conversation with someone? Please.
The problem is, Jeff, and what I would say to you is this: I'm with you. If that guy ever referees another game at the World Junior, I'm not broadcasting. So
that was insane.
And you know what? I'm sitting here with Dennis Bayak, and he said he's not broadcasting either. So we're a trio.
Yeah.
Here's what happens in my view, and is that we have officials. I know we're trying to develop officials and everything, but we have officials in the IIHF at this level that are not competent enough to referee at this level. That's the problem.
Well, and I don't know how you change that, I guess, Craig.
I have
tournament.
An idea. Brian, I have an idea. And I talked to Stephen. I talked to the IIHF and the NHL are working together with the rule book coming together. Why do we not have our officials that are in the NHL officiating program that are doing a little bit of NHL games, moving forward, being in the American Hockey League, come over here and do the games? There was a time when we talked about we can't have our NHL officials work in the Olympics. No, we want our best officials working. End of story. So let's get our best officials here. That's my suggestion. I think there is a solution.
Yeah, I what about the rules though? That's a part of the problem too, isn't it? They've got different rules when you're playing IIHF.
No, there isn't a different rules. They're marrying the rule book. They've married the rule book. They have married the rule book. The NHL and the IIHF have married the rule book. So now we need to get officials. That German official yesterday should never have been in that game. Just like there's players, if you try to put them in, if you take a junior B player and try to put them in that game, incapable. So is the referee.
Craig, I'm glad you figured out the refs, but I have another question that we tried to sort out yesterday. How do we figure out the goaltending problem in the country of Canada, or is there one?
Well, I don't know. Thomas Milic was pretty good last year, wasn't he? We weren't complaining about a goaltending problem last year. Listen, I think there's ebbs and flows every time. Next year at the World Junior Tournament, we're going to have Carson Bjarnason, who's a really good goaltender. We're going to have Scott Ratzlaff, who's a really good goaltender. There's going to be ebbs and flows every year with different strengths of the available players and different weaknesses. So this year, and I don't think Russo was a problem. I think Russo came in and did everything that he was asked to do. The margins on this Canadian team were always going to be such that they didn't have the offensive firepower to be able to overcome some of the shortcomings, some of the edges of areas of the game where you need a goal here or you need a goal there. Defensively, they were fine. Goaltending, they were fine. They didn't have enough offensive firepower. And I think that the goaltending, there's lots of good goaltenders in Canada. You start to move forward at this level. I don't think that goaltending is our issue. And if we start to run into problems where we don't have goaltenders for 3 and 4 years, I'll start to consider that we have a problem. But I don't think we have a problem.
I agree with you, Craig. I guess my question is it that a lot of other countries, do you feel like a lot of countries have caught up to Canada or at least bridged that gap in the development and their programs and everything where it's not just a 2-horse race or a 3-horse race like it used to be? Now you're seeing countries that have really put money and resources into developing players at a younger age, and they've bridged that gap. So they're not an easy out anymore.
I totally agree with you, Jamie. And so prior to the last 2 World Junior tournaments, and so August of 22 and then in December of 22 and January of 23, Canada wins 2 gold medals. But prior to that, 9 previous World Junior tournaments, there was 3 different champions. Finland with 3, Canada with 3, and the USA with 3. I think it's completely balanced out. We talk about the growth of the game internationally. We see it in the NHL with so many players coming over here. Dennis Bayak and I do the other pool. Norway, I know they're playing in a relegation game on January the 4th, but you watch that team play, they can skate, they can compete. Yeah, they lack a little bit of high-end skill, but at the same time, they're well coached, and you can see where their programs are moving forward. Same thing with Latvia. I mean, everybody can talk about Latvia. Oh, they're going to lose 15-0 to the USA. It was a 7-2 game, and Latvia can skate and they can compete. They don't have the high-end skill. But, Jamie, the game is narrowing in terms of the competitive level around the world. And that's a good thing for our sport.
With Craig Button. So we got Czechs versus the Swedes tomorrow, and then Finland versus the U.S. There's your semifinal. It sounds as if we were talking with Johnny yesterday. He thinks the Americans are the clear-cut, best team in the tournament. But the idea of Sweden versus Finland, they had a great game in the group stage on New Year's Eve. If you get Sweden versus Finland in a final, Craig, if you could pick 2 teams to get there, would that be your final matchup?
Sweden and Finland?
Yeah.
Finland's going to get obliterated tomorrow by the USA. Obliterated. First of all, okay, listen, Finland, the blue line, okay, they have one defenseman that can handle the puck. The rest of them treat it like it's a grenade. You wouldn't want them serving you a glass of wine because the glass is going to break and wine's going to be all over your lap. So Slovakia played tentatively. They were a better team than Finland going into that game, but they played tentatively. If you put pressure on the Finland defense, like the U.S. is going to, I don't think this game is going to be even close. I think it's going to be a 4 or 5 game margin, and Finland is just going to be, okay, we get to play for a bronze medal. Sweden and Finland are not playing for a gold medal on Friday.
Okay, that's not what I was asking. I'm saying if you could choose the best story for a final, would it be Sweden versus Finland?
USA, Sweden, all the way.
Yeah.
You got Sweden on home ice. Okay, let me ask you this, Brian. What did you think of the Czechia-Canada final last year in Halifax?
It was great. Canada was in it.
Yeah.
That's all that mattered to me.
Yeah, that's right. Sweden being in it, I don't care who they play. It'll be great.
Yeah.
And playing against the USA, which are a juggernaut. Here's the other part of it. In the last 2 U18 tournaments, USA won in April of 2023, beating Sweden in the gold medal final. In 2022, Sweden beat the USA in the gold medal final. These are the wagons in this tournament. They were the wagons coming into the tournament. Yes, I agree with Johnny now that the Sweden or USA has pushed themselves a little bit ahead with respect to where their play is at this point in the tournament. These are the two best teams. They're the most competitive teams. They're the most skilled teams. And to me, you look at that whole background, it's the competitive intensity on the ice. These players know one another. The USA 2004 born lost to Sweden. The 2005 Swedes lost to the US 2005. That sets up for a big-time gold medal matchup.
All right. Well, let's see it. Who knows? Maybe Czechia goes in and stuns the world again. Anything's obviously possible.
They could. No, there's no question it's possible. Listen, Sweden, Brian, yeah, you watch the way Czechia defends. They got a big defense. They got big forwards. If Sweden doesn't initiate play, and I'm talking attack the Czechs, they might fall short because the Czechs are a team that understands how to defend inside the dots. And the Swedes, I think, they are a better team, but they're going to have to go out and initiate really good, strong play. If they don't, they're going to be on the margins, and they could fall short just like Canada did.
All right. Well, we'll see. Say hi to Dennis for us, and congratulate Dennis Back on a great career. I know he's hearing from everyone across the hockey world. I'm sure he's getting a lot of love over there, but that was a really cool scene the other day, and we got 2 more games, or I guess, 4 more games left. The semis tomorrow, and then the gold medal game and the bronze medal. So enjoy it, Craig. We'll do it again soon. Happy New Year, buddy. Thank you for this.
Happy New Year to you guys, too. Thanks.
There's Craig.
Boy, did he took you to the woodshed.
Did he know he was on with us? Like, did he think he was doing a podcast? Like, I said he was so offended by me being like, well, Canada's out. It's in Sweden.
No, this was my favorite.
Geez.
If you had like a sentimental final, who do you think that would be, Craigie?
Yeah.
And then it was like, what?
Yeah.
They're going to get obliterated tomorrow.
Not what I asked, Craig, but all right. Like, if you don't want to come on, don't come on. It's not the end of the world.
I was dying. I think he obviously misunderstood the question. But he just
JP, try to get me the first part
like
of that
I know
answer.
the difference between
JP, try to get
Finland and USA at the World Juniors. He's over there covering it.
First part of the answer, JP, where he's like, they're going to get obliterated tomorrow.
Yeah. It's like, come on, dude. I'm watching the Leafs and the Raptors and Ross. I'm not watching Finland play Latvia or whatever at the World Juniors. But
that was
anyway.
classic.
Right.
Then he gave you the business for not watching.
Exactly. That wasn't what I was saying off the top. I'm saying it's a different experience and Canada's out. When Canada's out, it's very deflating. It sucks. I mean, let's call it what it is. It sucks when they lose in the quarters. You want to see them play.
It is. And, I asked that question. I'm sure I saw you guys talked about it yesterday. Like, has Canada, from a superpower standpoint, like, other countries have caught up. I got to be honest. And I think Canada needs to knuckle down and continue to work and develop. And
every time I've said that in the past doing this tournament, Canada goes and wins 3 straight gold medals or something.
I understand.
I know everybody's, USA always puts a quality team out there. The Swedes are always good. But as soon as you make that statement, and I've done it myself, it's like every other country is like they're just as good. Canada will rip off some gold medals or have a guy like Bedard or Crosby or McDavid show up, and it's like,
yeah, you're right. The top players are Canadian. Don't get me wrong, but I'm standing in the hallway yesterday. I see Brady Tkachuk and Quinn Hughes having a conversation. Like USA, you look at the first round of some of these drafts in the last couple of years, like USA's right there. Finland, Sweden. Like, I wholeheartedly believe, and it's got nothing to do more with Canada, but it's the other countries that have put resources, money, and they've just kind of been developing quietly and chipping away. They've bridged the gap. So it's not going to be just every time. And we see it in women's hockey, too. It was always just Canada, U.S., wake us up when they play. But other countries are coming now. And it's good. It's healthy for the game. But Canada they've got to keep their eye on the ball. That's the way I feel. It's just there's so much distraction around Hockey Canada and that. And I get that, rightfully so. But other countries, all they're doing is trying to develop, and they've put a lot of money into their programs, and they're coming.
Sweden and Finland?
Yeah.
Finland's going to get obliterated tomorrow by the USA.
I have never wanted Finland to win bigger in my life. If Finland wins big, Craig better be on the show tomorrow at 4:00. Yeah. And I want to hear everything he has to say.
You want Finland to win. If they win 5-0, you better FaceTime Craig. You better FaceTime.
And again, it doesn't matter to me who wins. If Canada's not in it or winning, it doesn't make a difference to me one way or the
Sweden
other.
and Finland?
Yeah. I was talking about the sentimental value of Sweden versus Finland.
Yeah.
I thought I phrased
to
it
you,
properly.
it was a nice thing, too.
I am. Like, hey, wouldn't it be cool to see Sweden versus Finland? Because I watched the game on
Sweden and Finland?
New Year's Eve was a great game between the Finns and the Swedes. And the crowd was electric. I'm like, that'd be amazing. And it's not doing it.
You know how bad we look on this situation? It's even worse. I just got a note. It is Craig's birthday today.
You're kidding.
We did not give him. It is his birthday.
I didn't know that. Should we have known that?
How are we supposed to know the birthdays of everybody? This guy is over there probably out for dinner and enjoying, and we've asked him to come on the show. We didn't say happy birthday to him. We did not do anything. I feel like we should call him back and on air be like, hey, we screwed up here. Sorry. Happy birthday. It's Craig Button's birthday today. We have him on the show.
Had no idea.
And then in his mind, we insult him.
I know.
Well, I insult him tomorrow by the
You guys didn't. I personally insulted him by admitting that Canada's out in the tournaments in Sweden. So me stating those two facts was not something that was acceptable. But I guess I gotta rescind my take now. Now I want the Americans to win because it's Craig's birthday, and on his birthday he can do or say whatever he wants.
No, you can still want Finland to win. You can still want them to
Secretly,
win.
I really
Finland's going to get obliterated.
Sweden and Finland?
I just want it close. If it's an
Finland's
overtime,
going to get obliterated tomorrow.
Wow.
Penny just started chewing their defense.
Even at the end, it was like, all right, I tried to let him off. Hey, Happy New Year. Great seeing you, buddy. Have a great time.
He gave it a great, guys. Thanks.
Yeah. See you later. Well, I guess what is this? A late or an abbreviated? Not an abbreviated. What do you call it? I'm searching for a word, but
happy belated. But
you
know what? Though,
birthday to our boy Craig.
We just did to Craig what he did to us in Barrie. Do you remember when we walked into that scouting room and he gave us a look like you guys do not belong here?
That's right.
For some reason, we did that on our show to him. I don't know.
Happy New Year to you guys too. Thanks.
Listen, it's been a busy. They've been over there for a long time. It's been a grind. Sure, he's out for dinner. It's his birthday. I mean, come on.
Exactly.
Oh man, is that funny? Wow.
Happy New Year to you guys too. Thanks.
All right, we got Kevin Kiermaier in about 15 minutes. Dave Poulin. Who knows what we're getting with Pooley in about 45 minutes. Jerry's percentage is still to come as well. Back into the Leafs Ducks tonight. The Raptors are back in action tonight down in Memphis as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Kevin Kiermaier will join us in about 15 minutes, and we'll get him to kind of explain what Ross Atkins was talking about earlier this morning about what the players were not being helped with last year from the staff, that now the staff is going to address, that will lead to internal improvement.
I want to ask him, Hazy, if there was a meeting about what happened in Minnesota. Like, I'm not talking to players only, like Schneider, because if I'm a player, I wanted to know what the hell was going on. Like, it was a bad ending to a season. And it's difficult to leave and come back for spring training like, hey, how's it going? Good to see you.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, 89 wins, they make the playoffs, but then to your point, it was such a weird vibe down the stretch, and they lose in the fashion they did. And like Kiermaier even admitted to the media, like he and his agent were surprised there wasn't as big of a market out there for him. And it felt as if Kevin Kiermaier was going to walk. It felt like he was going to probably go somewhere else. And now he comes back. So how do you get rejuvenated? How do you reattach yourself to a team that you thought you were leaving, but technically you never did, right? Like, you're going into your second season. Obviously, he's a vet in the clubhouse. He knows the clubhouse. He knows the team. He knows the staff. So, a lot to get into with Kevin Kiermaier. Dave Poulin coming up as well. The Leafs are in action tonight. The Raptors are in action tonight. Week 18 in the NFL is rapidly approaching. There's a lot going on, man. Roy McIlroy's taking a big step back on his approach to live golf.
What is his comment? Do we have the audio of it? Because I got to hear this.
We will play it because we're going to do our picks. We'll get it. He's on this really cool podcast. It's like former soccer greats. Like Roy Keane is on there. Gary Neville, I believe, is on there. I've seen it online on like TikTok, Instagram before. And he's sitting down with them, and they're just getting him talking, and he really addresses like his original approach to live. And it's what it sounds like is that Rahm leaving has changed basically everything. It's like and the point being is Rahm is so good that like Rory's like, well, we got to have him on the Ryder Cup team. He didn't mind chirping Ian Poulter and the guys who were done. But if you want to win a Ryder Cup, you better have Rahm. And so he's kind of
USA had Koepka. I didn't think that was going to happen.
Exactly. And it's probably a sign of what I think Rory understands is coming, that the Saudis are going to be around. Live Golf in some capacity is going to be married to the PGA Tour or something like that. And he's basically lost the fight. So, all right, move on, and we'll see what comes of it. So more on that later this afternoon. We will have picks for Kapalua. We got our best bets brought to you by FanDuel coming up. Kevin Kiermaier coming up. Dave Poulin coming up. Jerry's percentages coming up. Darren Dreger coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.